everybody, I'm Sarah and I'm a recorder player. Today I am going to tell you how to play an essential classic of the recorder repertoire, the Bach Partita for solo flute. It's the one that I play in all of my videos as an example. Lots of you ask me about it and it's such an amazing piece, but it's hard. The partita consists of 4 movements and it was originally composed for the traverso flute, this way, in A minor. Now today it's most commonly played on the recorder transposed up a minor third into C minor, a much trickier key, on the alto, so that's what we're going to do. And there's a lot to get through, so I'm just going to take you through the first of the 4 movements. Today I am also not going to go easy on you. After this video, if you want to tackle this piece, I'm going to give you a lot of homework. It's a real challenge and I want you to challenge yourself. The first step, the notes. Yes, the notes in this piece are hard and there's a lot of them. But getting the notes right is only the very most basic layer of this music. If you look at the score, it's just full of notes going on and on and on and on through all different keys. How to practice these? One simple trick I like to do is repeat patterns of 2 notes next to each other. For example, in this way you practice those finger changes, but you also start to get a bit of an idea of the harmony. Another way I like to practice these notes is to make groups of 3 and to pick one of these to be longer than the others. For example, what you do here is break up the phrasing and you're making new groupings than what you would normally expect in the music. This is very good for your brain. Let's make it harder. You could do groups of 5 notes. One thing I notice when I practice this piece is that I very quickly slip into always playing it in the same way. So in this way you're breaking yourself out of that, you're making new phrasings and new groupings, and it trains your brain. So this brings me to what I think after the notes is the hardest thing about this piece, the phrasing. It's basically all 16th notes, and what you don't want is ending up sounding like a metronome. But how do you know where to phrase? Are you ready for the 2 most fun words in music? Structural analysis! Yes! I got out my highlighter pens and did some analysis of this piece, and I want you to do the same as well. Why do we do this? Well, it just helps us to understand what's happening in the music a bit better, where the important bits are, how it's building up, how it's all put together. And then you can make more informed musical decisions. The first thing I did was look at the themes in the piece. By the way, I'm not going to show these on the screen in order to give you the answers. I want you to actually go away and do this for yourself. So I'll just show it like this. I highlighted where all the different themes come in the piece. Now the main theme is the... and this comes back throughout the piece. In different keys. And with that you have the counter theme, which is just basically another tune that comes back. Then you get and so on. By the way, I'm not playing these very musically right now, they're just examples. So first I coloured in my themes and my counter themes, and then I started to see in the music Bach is basically doing 5 different things. The theme, the counter theme, outlining chords, playing scales, or doing what I like to refer to as crunchy. Where he moves from one key to another in a very Bach-y way. Why is it interesting to know this? Well, you start to see the different building blocks in the piece. Of course, it's not only the shape of the music, it's the harmony. What I want you to go and do now is go through the piece and work out what key you're in. So we start off in C minor. For example, we start in C minor for quite a while. We get a nice diminished chord and then we have the G, back to the C. I could go through and tell you the chords, but that wouldn't really mean very much. It's important to figure it out for yourself and go and colour in where you have these cadences, like G to C, because that's another ending of a phrase. One thing I found really helpful to do was get another photocopy and colour in what I consider to be the important harmonic notes. Those are all the pink ones. And what you can even do is go through and just play these, and it gives you an outline of the kind of skeletal harmony. And then you keep these in mind as you're playing. This also reveals a couple of interesting things. It tells you about the harmonic rhythm, and that's how often the harmony is changing. In the beginning, we start in C minor for quite a long time. He's letting us in gently, and gradually it builds up, the harmony changing twice in a bar. And then 4 times per bar. And then this next bit even feels like 8 times per bar. So now we can see how the piece builds and recedes. What you can also see with these highlighted harmony notes is that they actually form their own melodies. For example, at the climax of the piece, we have and that last beat is a surprise because we expect the C. So try and feel that scale and that tension as I play the phrase now. We don't get the release of the C until the end. I need to calm down. Often there are jumps from low to high, and this also shows you the relationship, the conversation between these high and low voices. At the end we've got this lovely passage. But if you bring the octaves together, it's actually just... And I want you to try and have that same feeling of calm when you're playing the big jumps as when it's just... If we take those two voices separately, we have... and... So now hopefully you've looked at the piece, you know where your phrases are, and I want you to mark in your breathings and practice them in. What you want is that they sound natural and part of the piece. So the piece starts with the 16th note rest. Da, 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 da. And personally I like to keep that in the phrasing. So I always like to carry the phrasing over into the next bar and there have my breath. Another tip to help with the musicality of this piece is to zoom out. It's really easy to get lost in the details. Here we have a seventh, here we have a clash, here we have a cadence. Yeah, but there's always something happening because this is Bach. So I try to zoom out and just feel those phrases as long as I can. I notice when I play is that I always have the tendency to rush, especially with the passion of this piece. It can really help to practice with a metronome, not because you want it to sound metronomic, but because this is going to show you where you're rushing or where you're struggling with the fingers and slowing down. Don't forget to record yourself and listen back. I once performed this in a concert and I went all out with the articulation, doing really extreme things, and at the moment I thought it was great, and I listened back to the recording and it was like, oh, that was way too weird. So listening to yourself, hard as it is, always helps. The last big question for recorder players is the ending. The original ending as written is possible, but it goes up to the high C and it sounds like this. So what I'm about to say is my personal opinion. People also disagree with this. This is definitely not the only way. I'm just telling you how I approach it. Disclaimer, disclaimer. Okay, let's take it in context. The original piece is written for the traverso flute and it's in A minor, which is lower. That final note, a high A, isn't that high on the flute. Also an instrument much more capable of playing very softly in the high register. So it could have been this da 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 da. Not like our da 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 da. Also, what is Bach doing in those last beats? He's just illustrating a chord. That's it. What I prefer to do is to keep that chord of C minor, but just turn it around and finish it in a different way. For example, or to keep the harmony, to keep the spirit, but without the And this brings me to my last point, which is that there is no one final definitive way of performing this piece. I'll always find new interpretations of it, find new interesting details about it, but that's the beautiful thing about the music as well. So don't worry, that's what I'm trying to say. So this was my tutorial on how to get into the allemande from the Bach Partita for solo, flute or recorder. If you are practicing it, please let me know, and maybe you want to post a little video on Instagram or something. I would love to see it. As always, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my face down here in the corner. Down here is a link to the Team Recorder Patreon where you can choose to support the channel, and in the description is a link to my web shop where you can order my debut album. Up here is a link to my favourite Baroque pieces. And that's it. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye!